Hey everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today I'm going to be taking you through everything you want to know about the 1943 S penny. Now these are steel, so different from most of the pennies out there, and we'll be going through both a basic history and an advanced one, talking about some of the varieties which are super rare, and you can look closely to see if you've got a more valuable one than the average one. We'll talk about errors, which is where something goes wrong during the striking process, and of course we'll be covering the coin that sold for over $500,000, the copper 1943S. So let's get right into the presentation. Can't wait to tell you everything that I've compiled. So before we really focus in on the 1943S wheat cent, I want to talk about the design in general. So 1909 to 1958, they have these wheat ear reverse designs, and a lot of them are not super rare. Lincoln was the first man or person on a U.S. circulating coin that had actually existed, but in 1943 the States was in the middle of World War II, and they decided that they needed to put more copper towards the war effort, primarily for ammunition, so they went to a steel with zinc coating composition. And initially they thought it was a good idea. It beat out the other designs, but it was three reasons that they shifted back to a pretty similar composition from before in 1944, namely that it was magnetic. It's the only circulating U.S. magnetic coin, meaning that it wouldn't really work in vending machines, and there were some other challenging applications. They would sometimes be confused with dimes, and once they wore off and the zinc coating sort of worn down, it would rust and be really unattractive for use. So overall, they decided to scrap it the next year, but the really cool thing is that there were some off-metal Planchet errors. We'll be discussing those. Before we talk about that, though, overall mintage, 191,550,000. They're worth about 20 cents in circulated condition each. It's really going to be at the mint state 66 and higher level that they're worth submitting to a place like PCGS, and that is for ones without any of the varieties. Mint state 68 is where the value really takes off. In terms of the coin that you're probably really curious about, this one sold for over $500,000 in a Heritage Auctions sale in 2020. PCGS and CAC mint state 63. It was struck on a bronze planchet. I believe that the main theory, there's about 6 known from San Francisco, is that some of these planchets were left over in sort of the tubs that were then poured and would get struck, and these were left over from 1942. But either way, whether it was somebody who intentionally placed it and struck it so that they could have an error themselves, or if it was just a happenstance, a chance event, it sold for a huge amount of money. The only one rare was 1943D. There was only one known from that date and mint mark, and then 1944 or 1943P with no mint mark. There's maybe 10 to 15 known. 1944, sometimes some of the steel planchets then get struck with the 1944 when it should have been back to a primarily copper-based or bronze-based planchet. So anyways, that's that. We'll move on to the varieties. Here is the double die obverse. This is a really strong doubling on the inside of the 9, and it's listed FS101. This is able to be certified at PCGS. People pay about $50 in AU for it, $150 in mint state 63, and $400 for mint state 65, so like 20 times the value or more. The next ones often are not certifiable at the major grading companies when they're up here. This stands for Wechsler's attribution. If there's Coneca, that's a major error collecting society in the States and Variety Society, and those can often be certified at ANAX. But this is both a double die obverse. You can see it in the doubled eyelid, as well as an extra thickness double die reverse. But as you can see, these more minor varieties don't command huge premiums, maybe a 50% increase from the non-variety ones. There's a nice double die reverse. This is just way more thick than the lettering should be on the back. There's also some repunched mint marks that are really nice. This one, again, this would be certifiable, I believe, with ANAX because it is Coneca listed. A nice repunching, sort of a tilted one where the first one doesn't take, and so they repunch it over the design. I believe starting in 1989 or 1990, they no longer would do the punching of the mint mark separately. The dies would be created with the mint mark in it, so that error is no longer, variety version is no longer able to be found. But yeah, you can see that repunching, not crazy value differential though. Here again, standing out on the left side. And this is not literally every single variety, but it's a good amount of them that I want to cover. This one's a really nice one. I think a clear separation up here in the northwest of that initial punching, as well as this one, where it's more on the inner loop and the outside of the mint mark. Here, there's a nice separation in the northwest again. And then we've got this one, which is super, super clear, where it's almost all along the west side of the current mint mark. And then right here, I believe there's a little bit of separation sort of in the bottom. It's been tilted, yeah, from the original one, and that little serif is protruding beneath. After that, this one, I'm not exactly sure how many there are going to be, but you can see another one right at the bottom of the mint mark. And then we'll get into some of the other off Planchet, as I had mentioned earlier. This one's super damaged, was released into circulation, but somebody plucked it out. If it was the bronze Planchet, it would be so much more valuable. This one instead was determined that it was initially a Peruvian 5 centavo coin. The states would strike currency and coins for tons of other places, and this seemed to be one of them. So whether it was discovered in Peru or in the States, I'm not totally sure, but you can tell, the Planchet was not meant for it. It's struck and didn't have the full amount of Planchet to spread out over, so the design is larger, but you can see hard chips on the back. This one circulated, sold for $6,500, a really nice discount, like 1% of the bronze version. This one sold for a little bit more, $14,100. Somehow the Planchet for a Mercury dime ended up in the between the striking presses and gets the potentially steel zinc looking Planchet, but upon closer examination, it was a silver coin, and the Planchet is a little bit too small, I believe. And then this one was just struck way off center, where the Planchet was not fed between the dies that were striking correctly, so only a little bit of it is impressed, and this is a $3,240 error. And then after that, our last coin we're going to talk about is a cud die break. So cuds, I believe, are when it's on the side of the coin. If the die break had happened sort of on the inside, it would not be considered technically, if we're getting really down to details, a cud, but during the process of striking the coins, the die wears down, a little bit of it chips off, and then you have these interesting little errors. $75 feels like a pretty fair price for this one. Looks pretty nice, and it's certified by PCGS. So that brings us to the end of this video, but so many off Planchet things, so many different repunched mint marks and double dies to look for. And then of course the classic bronze Planchet. That's really the one to be on, keeping your eyes peeled for, but there's a lot more eyes looking for this than there is for these minor double dies, so that can be something if you really enjoy that field of collecting to get immersed in, and I'm sure that there are some good finds out there waiting to be made. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like the video, comment, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. And I also have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some other social media platforms. You can also go to my main channel website, treasuretownyt.com, to learn more about the channel and sort of stay in contact. I also will eventually host all of these videos on coinsmetalscards.com, which will be both news, marketplace, and coin information. I do have the goal of eventually getting pretty much every US coin, date, mint mark, denomination on the channel with a similar video to the one that you just watched, and that will likely all be hosted there. And then I also have treasuretowncoins.com, which is sort of my coin dealing wing, coin dealing only entity that is a little bit less focused on content production. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my other videos. I also have videos that are not just the date, mint mark, denomination recap in this format, so you can check some of those out, and I'll have fun seeing you there.